Soak them for 12 to 24 hours in 2 quarts water seasoned with 2 tablespoons kosher salt. We use Diamond Crystal. Drain, then transfer to a zip-closed bag and store in the freezer for future use. By the way, the frozen beans can go right from the freezer into your pot with no ill effect. And we need to give credit to cookbook author Joan Nathan. She gave us that tip from one of her cookbooks. For more culinary inspiration, please go to 177milkstreet.com. Up next, Adam Gopnik, who's never afraid to get philosophical about food. Adam, how are you?
I am well, Christopher. How are you?
I'm well, and I'm ready. I'm ready for a little philosophy lesson.
Are you ready for some poetry? Are you ready for some love poetry, Chris? Are you prepared for me having written a love lyric to you?
No, but I'll take it. I'll take it wherever it comes from.
Well, as sometimes happens to poets, you remember that Coleridge got the entire text of Kubla Khan, just entered his head while he was sleeping one day until he was interrupted by a person from Porlock, as he memorably wrote. The other day, a few lines of verse poured into my head with you very much in mind, because I was thinking about one of our favorite shared subjects, which is world cuisine. I know it's one of the ones in which you have now entered a whole kind of adventure, what actors and directors like to call a journey. I'm sure you've always noticed that when actors and directors are receiving awards, they always say, this was a remarkable journey, meaning this was a good film that I made. Well, I know that you have been on a global journey, and so have I. We both have the sense that the Northern European cooking on which we were raised and which was the first thing we struggled to master is outdated or out of touch, and we are going ever farther, you literally, me secondhand through reading, into the cuisine of the world. And yet, here's the thing that strikes me always about the cuisine of the world. It's that wherever we go and however exotic our tastes become and however global our culinary techniques become, we always return to the same meal. Have you noticed this? We always return to a neutral starch and a pungent protein. Wherever we go in the world, we end up with a neutral starch beneath and a pungent protein on top. It could be the curry on top of the rice, or it could be the tagine on top of the couscous, or it could be the tomato sauce and sausage on top of the plain pizza dough. But that is the meal, or the spicy ants on cassava root. That is the meal that the overwhelming majority of human beings sit down to eat. We eat that neutral starch and pungent protein, and we change the nature of those two things, but that, it seems, is the universal meal, the one that people love to eat. And into my ears, Christopher, leapt the following lyric. And as you know, I am, in addition to the other things I do, I am a lyricist. I write musical theater. But here was the lyric that leapt into my mind when I was thinking about the one global shared meal of all mankind. The starch is plain, the protein pungent. Above the base, a spicy unguent of shrimp or chicken, pork or ants. One flat, one sharp, the daily dance. Below tagine, you find the couscous. The desert's fire becomes subfucus, a word that means, you see, just twilight. In lexicons unxed, a highlight. The rice is white, if not the curry. The slump has bite, if not the slurry. For one meal's served to every nation, though none thinks it's mere imitation. A neutral base, a pungent topping. I'm off to eat. My song is stopping.
That's actually really good.
Well, thank you. But truly, that leapt into my mind between 23rd Street and 53rd Street on the West Side subway the other day, and I thought, I must share this with Chris. And I do think it is true that one of the most beautiful things to think about cooking is the way that with all of the endless lexical variations that we undergo, and I hope you noticed, by the way, that I put in two of my very favorite and recently acquired cooking words, and they are slump and slurry. It wasn't only this summer that I realized that between the cobbler and the crisp lay the slump, the fruit slump.
Yes.
And only this summer that I realized that between roux and cornstarch lay the slurry. So I was delighted to be able to use slump and slurry, my two favorite recent cooking words. But I do think it's true that with all of those extraordinary lexical variants, there really is a kind of universal grammar of human taste, and that is neutrality topped by something spicy.
Well, that's quite true. It's probably not true, though, to go back to the beginning of Northern European cooking, because there was nothing spicy after medieval times. Spices disappeared, and you got bland on bland, right? I mean, chicken pot pie is, is sort of like chicken on bland slurry, right? I mean,
well, I would describe it slightly differently. I think what you got, in all seriousness, was butter on bland or rich on bland.
That's a good point.
And that became the basic formula of French cooking for 2 magnificent centuries, was butter on bland, right? You had a white fish under a butter sauce. And we all thought that was the most delicious thing we'd ever tasted. And the closest thing we came to the tang of spice was a squeeze of lemon. And that was the standard. But I do think it was true that butter on bland was the formula of Northern European cooking for a very long time. And what's astonishing, Chris, is that we all believed in it, that it seemed satisfying not just to Northern Europeans for whom it was a folk cuisine, but to those of us who pretended to have bigger eyes and larger appetites. Larger appetites, I mean, for sensation. And I think but when we escape from the narrow ghetto of Northern European taste and we do confront the world's cuisine, in that case, I do think it's quite stunning as I turn the pages of your cookbooks or the ones I like, that invariably that's basically what we're preparing, is a neutral starch and a pungent protein.
Yeah, which of course is about opposition and distancing two very different things and bringing them together. I think it's 0 and 1, it's black and white, it's opposition, it's confrontation between ingredients, which somehow meld themselves together in the final dish. But that's the essence of differentiation is so different than Northern European cooking, right?
Yes, but I think if I may take one final metaphysical leap, falling flat on my face, no doubt, as I do, or falling out onto the subway tracks from the subway train, that's the basic principle of what makes any art interesting. It's the principle of fruitful contradiction. That's what makes a chord in jazz striking, is that it combines sweet sounds and flat sounds, a minor ninth chord or a flattened fifth chord. That's what makes them exciting, is that they have a contradiction between tension and release. And that's even true of the larger structure of music. It's true of painting. When we love someone like Matisse, it's not because we love just the pretty colors. We love the pretty colors in lots of worse painters. It's because we love the contradiction between the rough-edged, wiry drawing and the beautiful, sophisticated color. So I think that one of our core experiences of art is exactly our experience of the contradiction on the daily planetary dish.
It took me 3 sentences, and it took you 2 words to say the same thing. You said fruitful contradiction, which means you're the lyricist around here, and I'm just the hack. So once again, proving that you get the last word. Adam, thank you so much. The theory of fruitful contradiction in how the world eats. Thank you so much.
Great to talk to you, Chris.
That was Adam Gopnik, staff writer for The New Yorker. As a writer, Adam Gopnik sees the world differently than most of us because that's what he does. He observes life with a critical, entertaining, and often understanding eye. Good writers can find enlightenment anywhere. You know, Adam and I once had a grilled cheese sandwich and then rice pudding at a local New York diner near his apartment. And years later, he spun that encounter into an observation about the nature of the human condition. And there you have it. A good writer can find truth even in a bowl of rice pudding. That's it for this week's show. If you tuned in too late, you can always download Milk Street Radio on Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Radio Public, or Spotify. And please don't forget to subscribe to the show. That way you'll get every episode downloaded to your phone each week. If you want to learn more about Milk Street, please go to 177milkstreet.com. You can find our week's recipe, watch the new season of our TV show, subscribe to our magazine, or order our new cookbook, Milk Street Tuesday Nights. You can also find us on Facebook at Christopher Kimball's Milk Street and on Instagram and Twitter at 177Milk Street. We'll be back next week with more food stories, and thanks for listening.
Christopher Kimball's Milk Street Radio is produced by Milk Street in association with WGBH. Executive producer, Melissa Baldino. Senior audio editor, Melissa Allison. Producer, Annie Sinzaba. Associate producer, Jackie Nowak, and production help from Debbie Paddock. Senior audio engineer, Douglas Sugarts. Additional editing from Vicki Merrick and Sydney Lewis, and audio mixing from Jay Allison at Atlantic Public Media in Woods Hole, Massachusetts. Theme music by Toubab Crew. Additional music by George Brendel Egloff. Christopher Kimball's Milk Street Radio is distributed by PRX.